Good afternoon. Welcome to A Blast from the Past, Nursing from 1961 to 1975. I'm Avery Cole.
I'm Kenzie Lawrence.
I'm Tierney Welsh.
I'm Abigail Chiang.
Now to Kenzie on main events.
So today I'll be talking about events starting with 1961 through 1968. In 1961, the first contraceptive pill was introduced. 1962, the first successful reattachment of a human limb, followed by Bernard Lown restoring the rhythm of a heart using direct electric current. 1963, Fogarty invented the balloon embolectomy catheter. 1964, we invented long-term storage of human blood, followed by the first measles vaccine. 1965, a couple of scientists invented pan-retinal coagulation. 1967, the first vaccine developed for mumps. Dr. Christian Barnard also performed the first human heart transplant. In 1968, telemedicine was invented, which is the practice of medicine over a closed-circuit television. In 1969 through 1975, we have starting with the intra-aortic balloon catheter. 1970, the first known human oncogene, RAS, was discovered. Positron emission tomography, PET scan, was also developed. The first vaccine was developed for rubella, and 1971, the first soft contact lens was developed. 1972, the CAT scan was introduced, followed by 1974, the first vaccine for chickenpox and non-invasive fetal heart monitoring. In 1975, the field of photochemotherapy was invented, and now we're going over to Abby with nursing trends.
Thank you, Kenzie. Nursing students were part of the nursing staff during the 70s. They were expected to have great respect towards their seniors, which was the doctors and the matrons. It was basic etiquette to allow them to walk through the door first, hence you could often see nurses lining up waiting for the matron to walk through. Medicine was dispensed straight from the trolley, but surprisingly very few errors occurred due to this. In the Vietnam War, the average age of nurses that served was 23.6 years old. 65% of them had less than 2 years of nursing experience. Most of them were female, 21% were male. Male nurses were allowed to go to more places and do more things than female nurses. Also, female nurses, especially the Red Cross nurses, were trained to always have a smile, as they were constant reminders to the soldiers of their girlfriends and their sisters. Hence, feminine appearance was essential, which is why the Red Cross nurse uniform is still a skirt. Nurses were expected to work long working hours. They worked 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. They faced difficult ethical decisions and profound medical responsibilities, such as who to prioritize and the lack of medical equipment. Many of them developed PTSD due to the war environment. Some coping mechanisms was to form intense friendships with one another, as well as to express themselves creatively. Trauma and combat casualty care evolved during the Vietnam War. Proximity of the blasts and mines and booby traps caused severe traumatic injuries to the soldiers with tremendous amounts of dirt and debris in open wounds. Trauma care specialization as well as shock or trauma units were developed through these experiences. Now to Tierney for the nursing theories.
As most of us would have guessed, nursing theorists worked diligently during this decade. A highlight of some of these theorists is presented on the slide. Ida J. Orlando created the nursing process theory in 1961. Ernestine Wiedenbach wrote a thesis called The Collective Art of Clinical Nursing in 1964. Virginia Henderson defined nursing and nursing concepts in 1970. Sister Calista Roy created the adaptation model in 1970. Dorothea Orem came up with the self-care deficit in 1971. And in 1972, Betty Newman's system model was created. Believe it or not, some political figures actually helped to influence nursing during this decade. Martin Luther King Jr.'s fight for civil rights impacted nursing because he fought for equality for all people and fought to get rid of segregation. This was important because there was a lot of segregation between white and Black nurses and patients. For example, white patients could not receive Black blood. King helped to initiate change that would in the future allow all races to work together. According to a history of American nursing, President Kennedy recommended the Peace Corps to encourage world health through personal hygiene and community sanitation programs. However, he was assassinated before he could make these changes. President Lyndon Johnson helped put some of his plans into action by signing into law the Social Security Act, providing Medicare and Medicaid services to many Americans. President Johnson also added Title VIII, the Nursing Training Act of 1964, to the Public Health Service Act. This act gave support for the war on poverty and medical programs that would help to create opportunities for things like healthcare rights. Overseas, during this time, we had nurses serving in the Vietnam War. In 1965, 4 Vietnam nurses named Lieutenant Barbara Wooster, Lieutenant Ruth Mason, Lieutenant Anne Darby Reynolds, and Lieutenant Frances L. Crumpton were the first females to receive the Purple Heart Award. This award is a sign of honor and is given when veterans have been injured during their contributions to the war. Now to Avery on perceptions of nursing.
Very interesting. Thank you, Tierney. I will be sharing the public perceptions of nursing. In the early 1960s, nursing gained professional status throughout the world that attracted naive nurses into areas of combat. These men and women had no idea what they were about to be put up against. They liked the heroic look of nurses and decided to join in the Vietnam War. Even though there were disagreements and people were upset with soldiers fighting in combat, nurses were initially respected by all because they fought for soldiers and innocent people's lives. They were also admired for the service under difficult conditions. They had to work with what they had to care for people's wounds and save lives. Nurses were also drawn to serving in the war from the perception of past nurses. They wanted to serve like the nurses who served before them. Although, by the end of the war, nurses were not portrayed as heroic. Military nurses were viewed by many as murderers, not healers. They were treated and looked at poorly, which is extremely tragic because of all the work they did and they put their lives at risk. Now moving on to the perception of male nurses. Nursing was still considered a female occupation, but slowly more and more men decided to join. During the Vietnam War, a congressional bill was passed to allow male nurses to be commissioned into the armed forces. This bill helped people see that nursing is also a job for men and increased the amount of men in nursing. In only 1 year of this bill, male nurses accounted for 22% of all Army nurses. Nursing could slowly start to become viewed as a gender-fluent occupation.